Okay, let's start today's episode. So here is the super dehydrated, condensed version of what today will be. We're gonna talk about DC Comics. It's gonna be a review of the title Green Lantern Earth 1 Volumes 1 and 2. So if you're new or if you're returning, I welcome both of you to subscribe to the channel. I welcome you to like and comment and share as you please. I know this isn't like super viral, but I love DC Comics and I hope you guys appreciate them as much as I do, even if for just a day. Also gonna throw in a little asterisk. I am a DC Comics fanboy. I have zero against Marvel. I appreciate Marvel. I love X-Men. I love Spider-Man. I have a space for Marvel. What I don't have a space for is toxic fanboy, fangirl culture anywhere. So if you're coming here, you're toxic, you wanna talk about DC, get the about my comment section, okay? Before you go and find yourself wet. Basic request, don't be toxic. Don't be toxic for a noble cause. Don't be toxic for a cause. Don't be toxic. We love comic books. All right, let me just step off my soapbox and get back to these titles. Now, the comic book series that we're gonna be talking about, I picked especially for you. I picked so sweetly for you. This is my comic book ASMR. Smell the crispness. Ooh, smells like a book. So here are the two books that I've chosen. Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1 and Volume 2. Ooh. So why did I choose Green Lantern Volume 1 and Volume 2? Well, if you're returning, you know perfectly well that I'm the biggest Green Lantern fan to ever Green Lantern ever. Which is not hard to do because he's not a part of the big trinity of Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And he's not quite as like commercial as Flash has become with the Flash series. And everyone can seem to only remember the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern, which it wasn't a home run, you know? Not everyone gets a home run. And we didn't, so. But we're looking forward, okay? We're not looking backwards. Let's dive into these things. So why am I starting here with this title? Number 1, Green Lantern is a bad. Number 2, the Earth 1 titles, they're very low commitment. They don't require you knowing anything about the previous continuity, although if you do, there's little things that go over most people's head that you can appreciate. But if you're new, totally low risk, you're not going to be over encumbered with needing to know a bunch of things. Number 3, the sequel, the second part, came out recently. So if you want a recent read, something that's fresh, that you probably haven't experienced yet, you should go out and get the second volume, especially if you're a fan of the first one. If you're getting nervous about spoilers, because maybe you do want to read the second volume or maybe start this, I'm going to try and be as non-spoilery as I can. And if I give you a little bit of the story, just know that it's nothing too consequential, okay? All right, let's get the show on the road because I'm trying to keep the minute count down to like somewhere. Green Lantern, Earth 1, Volume 1. Who made this thing? Gabriel Hardman, Corinna Bechko, and Jordan Boyd. And also, because in this household, we respect everyone that is involved, the letters were done by Simon Bowland. So the first thing that I want to say about this book, if you don't read comic books or if you do and you don't really go to DC or Marvel, is that this doesn't feel like a DC title. It does and it doesn't. So what do I mean by that? The previous books, Batman Earth 1 and Superman Earth 1, all of the Earth 1 titles have very clean, traditional art styles. This does not have a clean, traditional art style, and I mean that as no great insult. In fact, I think it very quickly establishes a mood to the book that you wouldn't be able to get with a traditional art style. The first example I have to show that is the Manhunters. If you're not familiar, you don't have to be. They are essentially like Terminators, or if you're familiar with the X-Men canon, they are like Sentinels. He's looking really like just mean. If you're a Green Lantern fan, we've never seen Manhunters that look this like mean. So this is what I was talking about there being like some foreboding. Look at how menacing that is. It's like a Manhunter, like, yo, I'm activated. So that's the Manhunters established. You guys following me? You get it? Okay, so yeah, they're the baddies. The first real pop of color that we get is this big fight. I'm gonna take this as an opportunity to show you what's going on with this suit. So the suit is his astronaut suit with light emanating from it. The suit isn't created by the ring. He's actually wearing a suit, which I think is cool. I like a functional suit. Like alone there, you can see this is not a particularly traditional DC Comics art style. And I love that. It's very heavy on the ink and the color pops, but it's used like very sparingly. And it doesn't feel so comic booky. It really feels like we're looking at some of the most detailed storyboards of a movie we could possibly look at. So I promise I'm not giving you away everything. I just have to show this shot real quick. You see it there. It's not a spoiler, I promise it's not a spoiler. It's not a spoiler, but it is showing the conclusion of that first fight. I just love that use of space, right? It's so simple and it's so effective, but it just shows him absolutely just f***ing up that Manhunter. That's one of the ways in which if you're an artist and you're watching this, you could show a set of panels that make something epic, or you could get the staple, the bread and butter, the awesome thing about comic books, which is the page turn. You have this nice big fight and then you flip to the page and it's just showing the new and raw power of a Green Lantern fighting a Manhunter. So I give you a taste of what the colors look like and shown how heavy on the blacks they've been showing it up until this point, right? After that Manhunter fight, Hal wakes up from the fight and we get very good, I'm gonna stand up for this one, very good homage to Neo waking up after he's been out of the Matrix. And then we get a page turn and there we go. There is that color. So it has this amazing just switch that it throws, like what would I say, a quarter into the story, after seeming like such a like Ridley Scott directed like dark film noir heavy thing. It suddenly turns into more of an Avatar looking thing, which I love. Give us the best of both worlds. Give us the like lightly horror side of space, and then give us the fantasy. I love when there's a deliberate shift of color. It's just, I love that by the end of this book, Hal is like disheveled. He has a beard. Look at him here. Look at him here. This isn't giving away too much. That's Hal. That's Hal. So it feels very much like high fantasy. Like, look, he's been at it. He's been going for a while now. He hasn't had time to think about how I need to shave. So the last thing I'm gonna show you is something that I think is just beautiful graphic storytelling by Gabriel and by Jordan. And it is this. It is Kilowog talking about, you know, sort of the rise and fall of Green Lantern Corps previously. So if you look, the edges that we're getting from Kilowog, we're getting, you know, an edge from Kilowog, we're getting an edge from the planet, we're seeing the central power battery of the Green Lantern, and then the Manhunters leaving. I just love when there's borders, when there's edges to the panels, but they're, to use a film term, diegetic, right? Like it's all lived in. There's no like hard border like you see on these panels. It's all just very lived in. And the borders are just bleeding onto one another. None of these things live in the same space. They all fit onto a page. And that's like the beauty and the magic of comic books, right? Any questions? Leave them in the comments. And also, if I have you, make sure that you've subscribed, throw a like, comment. Do I feel like I need to say anything else about volume 1? Let's just do some quick bullet points. This mood is intense. It feels like a genre blend. Another thing I love about this book is just, since it's talking about space, there's so many problem solving things that they need to do in this. And that really comes into play more with the second volume here. So let's just take a quick glimpse. I'll get my mug out of here. And you see the whole of the core behind Hal now. He's kind of modified the suit a little bit, but it still kept the flavor that it did from the first book. So that's what it's showcasing on the cover. So let's talk about the bones. Let's talk about the substance about what's going on here. There's so much narratively that occurs in the second one. There's some awesome storytelling moments that are twists on the original lore. So right here, we have Hal getting offered what has not yet been called a Sinestro Core ring, but a Yellow Lantern ring. So he's getting a sort of temptation to just try the yellow ring because it's already been shown that it's more powerful than a Green Lantern ring. The Guardian is always saying, this is my view for the universe and how to protect it and how to maintain order. It's him saying, I'm not trying to kill you. I'm trying to make things better, make sure that there's order, but I need to atone from the sins of the past with the Manhunters, and this new and improved Yellow Lantern Corps is the way to do it, and I'm trying to get you to just jump on board. But Hal doesn't want to do it because he sees the flaw of trying to improve at every step. The more we try and improve, the further from perfection we seem to be getting. I love the color here. So this introduces another thing I just love about Green Lantern and about the world and everything like that. You see right here, that's a bubble lantern. And I love that about Green Lantern is this constantly pushing the boundaries of like what is sentient and what could be a Green Lantern. Could a cloud of bubbles be a Green Lantern? Why not? Look at his word bubble. It has extra bubbles on it. So come on. You can't tell me they didn't put love and care into that. It's just bubbles on word bubbles. Come on, that's great. Another thing that I love about the second volume is that there is a really good from bad to worse moment that shows up in the narrative. Like just when you think like things are going pretty bad, they get worse. And I always love when there's something like that in there. It's like a very visceral like, oh shoot, okay, the game really has changed. Who is that? Is that Larfleeze? Who's that? I don't know. It's not Larfleeze, but who is it? So the second book feels way more story driven, and what I mean by that is there is not just an A plot, a B plot. There's like EF storylines, it feels like at times. We also get some characters in volume 2 that we did not get in volume 1, John Stewart and Carol Ferris. As always, I would have loved to have seen more Carol, but I think for this book, because of how much is going on, she's backseated a little bit, but John Stewart has like a really awesome storyline that he goes on with 2 completely new characters that get fleshed out. Like, look at this, like Sinestro in the foreground, the panel work, just this is low-key an ensemble book. Like, yes, you know about Hal Jordan and his merry band of Green Lanterns, but the secondary characters, you can't even really call them that because they all have a moment to shine. There's stakes to each of their subquests they go on to that help Hal out. So to say that it's a Hal Jordan story is not accurate because if any of the subquests failed, the whole quest would fail. So yeah, the last high point that I'm gonna say about volume 2 is that we're seeing Hal, even though he's very bearded and longer haired in this, come on, there we go. We really see him become the Hal that we know, at least by the end of this book. You could maybe make an argument he is by the end of the first book, but he's certainly Hal Jordan by the end of this book. He leads the Corps. He's just more confident in his abilities. He's more confident in his moral compass, and isn't kind of brooding about, you know, the NASA that never was. So if I'm gonna talk about the things that were maybe a little wonky, certainly no huge demerits about these 2 very awesome books. The first one being that for the first volume, because there aren't really too many dialogue moments peppered into the big finale, especially if you're a quick reader, you're gonna feel like that finale just flew by in an instant because of how much of it's just action. It's just panel, flip, panel. Some people don't like dialogue in their climax because why are they yammering? Why are they chatting? For me personally, just a few lines exchanged between protagonist and antagonist gives us a moment before whatever the final blow is or whatever the final bout is. So that's what I would have liked to have seen more out of the first book. It's super nitpicky, but the second volume, maybe with the second one, there's an element of it being kind of a confusing opening. Like, I was reading it, I was like, I'm not sure, what are we trying to convey? Like, what just happened? I was going over panels again, because there's a very explosive thing that happens, and you're like, what? That's the point. There is a mystery that's not being so on the nose, like, hey, this is a mystery, we have to figure this out. It slowly develops and you go, oh, then who was responsible? So if you're reading it in the beginning, it's like, what's going on? This is confusing. That's kind of the point. For these two books, like, that's like barely any criticism at all. You're gonna have a fun time. This is such great genre blending. This is such great artwork. This is such great storytelling. And it is such a breath of fresh air for a property that I already love. I've never wanted a third part for a book more, because it just, everything that's in Earth 1 that's positive is expanded upon in this and just sets up for more awesome, amazing storytelling. So yeah, so here we are at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope that was entertaining. I didn't want it to just feel like a book report. I love the character, I love DC, and I love talking about comic books. So I'm gonna come up with my picks of what I want to talk about. If there's any title that you want me to do a review of that you thought was really good, that's new, or if you want me to dig through the archives of something that was awesome for you that you want me to experience, go right ahead. If you haven't already, subscribe, leave a like, comment, hit the notification button so you get notified as soon as these episodes drop. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.